She shouldn't want me, but every glance, every touch says she does. The story opens on an ordinary day with an extraordinary undercurrent. Our male narrator, in his mid-20s, finds himself unexpectedly noticing her, a woman in her early 40s, during a casual encounter. Perhaps it's at a quiet café tucked between city streets, where the hum of conversation and the aroma of coffee beans mingle with the late afternoon sunlight streaming through tall windows. He's seated alone, casually scrolling through his phone, when she enters the space. Graceful, self-assured, yet carrying a quiet vulnerability that immediately commands attention. From the first glance, she seems aware of the world in a way that is both grounding and slightly intimidating. There's an elegance in how she moves, a confidence tempered by subtle traces of fatigue from life's demands. Yet beneath the poise, there's an openness in her eyes that hints at someone willing to quietly notice, and perhaps be noticed, in return. The narrator feels an unusual pull. This isn't infatuation based purely on appearance. It's curiosity, admiration, and a sudden recognition of unspoken familiarity. Their initial interaction is small, almost incidental, a question about a book on a shelf, a shared joke about a missed order, or the casual offer of a chair. The conversation is light, yet layered with an unspoken tension. Every gesture becomes significant. The way her fingers lightly brush against his when reaching for the same book, the subtle turn of her head as she laughs, and the fleeting, lingering glances exchanged over the rim of a coffee cup. The narrator notes the warmth in her smile, the slight tilt of her head, the way she tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear, a movement that seems to slow time, if only for a heartbeat. There's a careful awareness on both sides. She senses he is different from the younger men she typically encounters. His attentiveness, sincerity, and quiet confidence set him apart. For him, her presence is magnetic but not overpowering. It's a gentle tug on emotions he didn't expect to feel so quickly. In these few moments, the story establishes the subtle age gap tension, not through dialogue about numbers, but through the contrast of life experience, the serenity in her movements versus his energetic curiosity, and the way they silently gauge each other's boundaries. The setting amplifies intimacy, background noises, the low murmur of conversations, the distant sound of traffic, and the soft clinking of coffee cups create a private bubble around them. Sensory details are key. The faint scent of her perfume, warm and slightly floral, mingles with the roasted coffee aroma, leaving a trace in his memory. Her laughter carries softly across the table, and when he smiles back, it's as if an unspoken understanding flickers between them. Something unexpected, fleeting, yet undeniably compelling, has begun. By the end of this opening scene, the audience should feel the spark of attraction. Subtle, restrained, and emotionally resonant. This first collision sets the tone for a slow-burn romance, emphasizing curiosity, connection, and the quiet thrill of noticing someone who feels profoundly significant, even in a brief encounter. After that first spark, the story slows into a rhythm of subtle observation. The male narrator can't stop noticing her, even in ordinary, fleeting moments. Perhaps they encounter each other again at a bookstore, a library, or the corner cafe where he now finds himself lingering just a little longer than necessary. She's there, as if by coincidence, engrossed in a book or quietly sipping her drink. The narrator watches, careful not to stare, yet drawn to her presence as if some invisible thread pulls him closer. He begins to notice details that are easy to overlook. The way her fingers trace the edge of a book, how she absent-mindedly taps a pen against her notebook, the way her shoulders slump slightly when she relaxes, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability beneath her composed exterior. These small gestures stir a mixture of admiration and quiet longing in him. She is poised yet human, confident yet touched by subtle fragility. He finds himself remembering the faint scent of her perfume, warm and slightly floral, carrying the memory of their first encounter. She, in turn, notices him, though she quickly looks away. There's a fleeting recognition in her gaze, an acknowledgement that he is present in a way that is different from others. Her reactions are careful but revealing. A half smile that lingers a moment too long, a small blush when their eyes meet, a subtle tilt of her head that invites conversation without words. She struggles with her own awareness, feeling a pull she didn't expect and questioning why a younger man could evoke such a stirring of emotions she thought she'd outgrown. This chapter is about the unspoken tension. Neither speaks of the attraction yet, but every glance, every small movement, carries meaning. Their interactions are defined by pauses and hesitations. She lingers over a phrase in a book he recommends. He notices the curve of her smile without daring to comment. The tension is quiet, almost imperceptible to anyone else, but electric to them. Physical proximity is subtle but meaningful. Sitting across a small table, they lean slightly toward one another, not out of necessity, but instinct. A stray brush of hands when reaching for sugar or a pen sends a jolt through both of them, a reminder of the delicate line between curiosity and desire. These tactile moments are small, yet they anchor the emotional pull. Each touch lingers in memory, leaving unspoken questions hanging in the air. Emotionally, this part is about internal conflict and self-awareness. He feels the excitement of fascination but is cautious, aware of the social and emotional complexities of their age difference. She feels the thrill of being seen and desired, yet battles with propriety and restraint. Both are learning that attraction isn't only physical. It is entwined with admiration, empathy, and the subtle recognition of shared humanity. By the end of this segment, the audience should feel the slow crescendo of desire and curiosity, the magnetic pull of emotional connection that doesn't yet need words, and the quiet excitement of noticing someone who seems unexpectedly significant. This is the stage where attraction deepens, tension thickens, and the slow-burn romance truly begins to take hold. By this stage, the initial spark and quiet observation have shifted into something deeper. The male narrator begins to sense that their connection is no longer surface level. It carries weight, and it feels inevitable. They find themselves in a more private or reflective setting, perhaps a late evening walk through a quiet neighborhood, a serene park with the sun dipping below the horizon, or working together on a small project in a softly lit room. The atmosphere is calm, intimate, and charged with subtle anticipation. She begins to share fragments of her life, not dramatic confessions, but tender insights. The way a past disappointment shaped her, a fleeting regret she carries, or the quiet challenges of navigating her 40s. Her voice is steady but laced with vulnerability, and for the first time, the narrator sees cracks in the polished exterior she normally presents. These moments are small, almost casual, but they carry enormous emotional weight. She is allowing herself to be seen fully, without pretense. He listens with careful attention, not interrupting, not offering easy solutions, simply absorbing her words with empathy. His responses are soft, considered, and genuine, reflecting his admiration and respect. He validates her feelings without judgment, a contrast to the usual quick reactions she encounters from peers or younger men. Through this mutual attentiveness, trust begins to blossom. It is quiet, subtle, but deeply grounding. The emotional focus here is intimacy through shared vulnerability. Both are exploring how much they can safely reveal, and how that openness draws them closer. The age gap becomes less of a boundary and more of a backdrop. Their shared humanity and emotional resonance are what truly matter. The narrator's awareness of her life experience adds depth to his fascination, while she finds comfort in his sincerity and lack of pretense. Sensory cues enhance the intimacy. Her hand brushes against his shoulder as she emphasizes a point, not consciously seeking contact but leaving it there long enough to make him acutely aware. A pause in their laughter allows their eyes to meet, the lingering gaze holding unspoken questions. Their physical proximity is natural, not forced. Leaning slightly toward each other, the subtle warmth of their bodies in shared space reinforcing emotional closeness. The quiet of the evening amplifies the moment. Ambient sounds, the rustle of leaves, distant traffic, or the soft hum of a café's closing hour, create a cocoon for their conversation. He notices the faint scent of her perfume again, a subtle continuity from their earlier encounters, now intertwined with the emotional weight of her openness. Every small gesture, a tilt of her head, a soft exhale, the way she clasps her hands, speaks volumes. By the end of this part, the audience should feel that the bond has deepened significantly. They are no longer merely intrigued by each other. They are beginning to trust and rely on one another emotionally. The slow burn tension is now complemented by a shared sense of safety and connection. The stage is set for the next evolution of their relationship, where unspoken desires and emotional dependence start to converge, creating anticipation and heightened emotional stakes for both characters. The story now enters the phase where the emotional tension between them becomes almost tangible, hovering in every glance and touch. Their connection has deepened through quiet observation and shared vulnerability, and yet neither has fully acknowledged their attraction. The age gap, while subtly acknowledged internally, now frames the unspoken conflict. They both feel the pull, yet hesitate, aware of propriety, consequences, and their own vulnerabilities. They find themselves in a quiet, intimate setting that naturally fosters closeness. A balcony overlooking the city at dusk, the cozy back corner of a coffee shop during off hours, or a softly lit library aisle. The physical proximity is accidental at first. Brushing shoulders as they reach for the same book, standing close to look at a shared document, or leaning over to point at something. Each touch, small and seemingly incidental, resonates with meaning. Both feel the heat of awareness, a subtle electricity that neither can ignore. The narrator notices everything. The way her eyes widen for just a moment when he steps closer, the small intake of breath that betrays surprise and curiosity, the way her fingers curl slightly as if resisting the urge to touch his hand. She, in turn, feels a magnetic pull toward him, a desire she carefully restrains. The internal conflict is vivid. Every glance and gesture carries the tension of, I want to, but I shouldn't. This moment is as much about self-restraint as it is about desire. Emotionally, this chapter emphasizes the delicate balance between longing and propriety. They are acutely aware of the age difference, the social implications, and the uncharted territory of their feelings. Yet the connection is undeniable. Every shared laugh, fleeting touch, and subtle smile intensifies the magnetic pull. The tension is built not through overt action but through pauses, hesitations, and careful observation, allowing the audience to feel the desire simmer just beneath the surface. Sensory cues are key to amplifying the slow burn intimacy. The warmth of her hand grazing his as they reach for the same object, the subtle brush of his shoulder against hers as he moves slightly closer, the quiet sound of their breaths in a space otherwise still. Their shared environment mirrors the tension. A warm breeze that stirs loose strands of hair, the golden light of dusk casting long shadows, or the soft hum of ambient background noise that isolates them from the world. Body language communicates what words cannot. She tilts her head slightly, her gaze lingering longer than necessary, testing boundaries without overstepping. He responds with a small, encouraging smile, leaning in just enough to acknowledge closeness while respecting space. Every movement is deliberate yet natural, creating a silent dialogue that is emotionally charged and intensely intimate. By the end of this part, the audience should feel the story's romantic tension at its peak. The characters are fully aware of their attraction but are not yet acting on it. Desire simmers in every glance and brush of skin, creating anticipation for the eventual confession and emotional reckoning. This is the stage where the slow burn becomes palpable, leaving viewers on edge, invested in every unspoken word and lingering touch. The tension that has simmered quietly between them now reaches a turning point. The male narrator and the older woman have spent weeks, perhaps months, moving in tandem, closer, yet careful, curious, yet hesitant. In this part, they step into the space of emotional reckoning, where unspoken feelings begin to emerge into words. It is a delicate moment, where vulnerability meets desire, and restraint wrestles with honesty. They find themselves in a quiet, private setting, a softly lit living room, a park bench under the amber glow of streetlights, or a late-night café with only the hum of background music for company. The atmosphere is intimate, yet neutral enough to allow raw emotion to surface. She begins to speak, tentatively at first, admitting the tension she has felt, the unusual pull toward someone she never expected to desire. I shouldn't want this. I shouldn't want you, but I do, she says. her voice low and tinged with both shame and longing. The narrator listens attentively, letting her words land fully without interruption. He senses the weight behind them, the internal struggle she has carried, the fear of judgment, and the thrill of surrendering to feeling. He responds not with grand gestures, but with sincere acknowledgement, validating her emotions and creating a safe space for continued honesty. He might say something simple but profound, that he has felt the same, that her presence has become a rare and grounding joy in his life. The emotional focus here is mutual vulnerability. This is not a declaration of romance, but the tentative acknowledgement that attraction exists, that desire and admiration are mutual, and that both are willing to confront the social and emotional complexities of their age gap connection. This is where internal conflict is externalized. Her hesitation meets his empathy, his desire meets her restraint, and together they navigate the precarious territory between longing and propriety. Physicality is subtle but meaningful. She might lightly rest her hand on his forearm as she speaks, an almost subconscious gesture seeking connection and reassurance. His hand may hover nearby, hesitant to touch, yet exuding warmth and attentiveness. Small, deliberate movements, leaning in slightly, a fleeting brush of shoulders, communicate emotions that words only partially capture. Every touch is heightened because it is carefully chosen, deliberate, and deeply felt. Sensory detail enhances the intimacy of the scene. Perhaps the faint scent of her perfume lingers in the air, mingling with the aroma of coffee or evening rain outside the window. The soft rustle of clothing, the subtle clink of a cup, or the quiet hum of distant traffic isolates them in a cocoon where only their shared emotional space matters. Every glance is loaded with meaning, every pause pregnant with unspoken desire, and every shared smile an acknowledgement of mutual understanding. By the end of this part, the audience should feel the story entering its most emotionally vulnerable stage yet. The characters have begun to speak openly about their feelings, yet the romance remains restrained, safe, and deeply human. The tension shifts from purely unspoken desire to a shared acknowledgement of emotional stakes, setting the stage for the next chapter. The moment where closeness becomes almost unavoidable, and physical proximity mirrors the depth of emotional connection. After weeks of quiet tension, observation, and tentative confessions, the story reaches a pivotal moment where emotions and physical closeness intersect. The male narrator and the older woman are drawn together, not through a dramatic event, but through an ordinary situation that amplifies intimacy, helping each other with a task, walking home in the evening, or navigating a shared responsibility. This ordinary setting becomes charged with anticipation, as their connection, now undeniably mutual, can no longer be ignored. Their proximity is natural yet electrifying. Perhaps they are side by side on a narrow staircase, leaning slightly closer than necessary, or working together at a desk, shoulders brushing as they reach for the same item. Each accidental contact carries emotional weight. She notices the warmth radiating from his body, the subtle steadiness in his posture, the reassuring presence that has slowly become a source of comfort. He feels the soft brush of her hair as she leans forward, the faint scent of her perfume mingling with the evening air, leaving a lingering trace in his memory. The emotional focus here is clarity and decision. Both are acutely aware of their feelings, and the moment demands a choice: to remain in careful hesitation, or to acknowledge, through gesture or presence, the pull they have resisted for so long. This is not yet a confession in words. It is a choice through subtle action, an affirmation of connection without needing verbal confirmation. The tension that has been simmering through weeks of shared glances, fleeting touches, and quiet conversations now reaches a tipping point. Physical cues are tender and YouTube safe. Perhaps he instinctively places a hand lightly on the small of her back to guide her through a doorway, or she rests her hand on his forearm while laughing at a shared joke. These gestures are deliberate, yet gentle, loaded with meaning. Their bodies naturally orient toward one another, reflecting mutual desire and trust. Even a fleeting brush of their hands or a shared leaning in to inspect something becomes a charged moment, emphasizing that their emotional closeness is mirrored physically. Sensory details deepen the intimacy. The evening air carries a gentle chill, making their closeness feel comforting and natural. The subtle sound of their breathing, the distant murmur of city life, or the soft rustle of leaves outside frames a space where the world narrows to just the two of them. Their shared laughter and soft smiles punctuate moments of silence, reinforcing emotional intimacy while the physical proximity heightens anticipation. By the end of this chapter, the audience should feel that the characters have reached a moment of mutual clarity. Words are secondary. Their gestures, proximity, and attentiveness speak volumes. Desire is acknowledged, restraint is understood, and the slow-burn tension now blooms into something tangible and real. The stage is set for the final act, emotional resolution, where vulnerability and honesty converge, and the characters must face the culmination of their journey together. The story reaches its culmination, where months of subtle attraction, shared moments, and emotional tension finally converge. The male narrator and the older woman have navigated hesitation, vulnerability, and unspoken desire, and now they face a quiet, intimate reckoning. The space around them is ordinary yet meaningful. A softly lit room, a calm evening on a balcony, or a serene park bench where time seems to pause. Here, the focus is entirely on their emotional and physical closeness, with no external pressures to distract them. She speaks first, softly and deliberately, as if testing the air. "I shouldn't want you, but I do." The words carry the weight of her internal struggle, a mixture of longing, hesitation, and surrender. Her gaze meets his, searching for understanding, reassurance, and mutual acknowledgement. The male narrator responds with quiet honesty, not through grand declarations, but with the simplicity and sincerity that have defined their relationship. "I've felt the same. You've been impossible to forget." There is relief in the exchange. Relief that their feelings are mirrored, that the unspoken tension is finally given voice. The emotional focus here is acceptance and alignment. The age gap, the hesitation, and the societal considerations fade into the background, leaving only the profound connection they have cultivated. They do not need to rush or dramatize the moment. The beauty lies in the simplicity and authenticity of their bond. Their journey has been one of patience, observation, and subtle growth, and now the emotional payoff is quiet, warm, and deeply satisfying. Physical gestures are tender and carefully measured. She reaches for his hand, their fingers intertwining naturally, a gesture that speaks volumes about trust, comfort, and desire. He brushes a stray strand of hair from her face, his touch gentle yet intimate. Perhaps they lean their foreheads together for a brief moment, eyes closed, savoring the closeness that has been building over weeks. Every movement is meaningful, YouTube-safe, and loaded with emotional resonance. Sensory detail reinforces the intimacy. The faint scent of her perfume mingles with the evening air, creating a memory that lingers. The soft rustle of clothing, the subtle warmth of their hands pressed together, and the quiet ambient sounds, the distant hum of city life, the gentle sigh of wind, frame a moment that feels suspended in time. Laughter may break through, soft and shared, punctuating a space now filled with trust and affection. By the end of this chapter, the audience should feel completion and fulfillment. The slow-burn romance has resolved naturally. Desire has been acknowledged, vulnerability honored, and emotional intimacy fully realized. Whether the story concludes with them walking side by side, sitting hand in silence, or sharing a gentle embrace, the resolution communicates that they have chosen each other, fully or tentatively, and that the bond they've built will endure. It is a satisfying emotional closure that leaves viewers with warmth, hope, and a sense of the profound human connection that has unfolded gradually but powerfully over the course of the story. If you felt the slow burn tension, the quiet glances, and the impossible attraction in their story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a story that makes your heart pause. Share your thoughts below. Have you ever felt a connection you shouldn't want, but couldn't resist?